Now we know that the spaceship should fly through this point, but we don't know where else. We know that they should fly more or less straight in this area of the screen. So one thing that I could do is I could grab this one locator. I could hit Control D like Delta on my keyboard, and you see that creates one more locator, and I can just move this locator forward, and I hit Control D and I move this locator, earlier on I moved it backward and now I'm moving it forward, so I have a couple of locators there. And you will be asking, why do I need these two locators? Because I'm trying to figure out more or less where the spaceship should go, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bunch of locators by hitting Control D and moving them out to try and understand where is the path that the spaceships will follow as they fly down. If you think they are too small, again you can scale up the local scale. You can even input the number there, 10,000, so I know more or less where these spaceships are going to fly. It is probably a bit easier to do it that way so that you have an idea of where the spaceships are going to be, and this way as you rotate the camera you will also know more or less what to frame. And when you will be designing the flight path for the spaceships, you will also know where to put down your curve, because right now the spaceships are free in space, but eventually what we're going to do is to draw a curve and tell them to follow that curve, which is probably going to be a bit easier to manage if you think of it. So I will just duplicate this locator a few times. Every time I duplicate them I hit Control D on my keyboard, and I will just make sure they form some sort of nicer curve and that they are more or less evenly spaced. So this is going to be the trajectory of my spaceships, and in 3D it's going to look more or less like so. Now I think I maybe even try and moving the camera, so I will unlock it and I will maybe go to, I think with this frame will be more or less happening at 67 or so. I will hit S there just to store the position. If you have auto key enabled on the bottom right corner of the screen, you probably want to disable it right now. So we'll just click on it, these two arrows chasing each other, I will just click on it so that it's grayed out, and then I will go to say frame 27, and what I will do is I will rotate the camera like so, and you see that I have a little bit of a problem there, because in the perspective I do see the locators, but in here in the camera I don't. It's another file clipping issue, so I will just Control A this thing to go into the attribute editor, set near clip plane to 1, and far clip plane I'm going to add a couple of zeros there. This is not exactly what we want, because the planning was saying they come from this area in here and then they move to the right, while my locators are sort of starting from the right and moving to the left and moving again to the right. So that tells me already that I can possibly move these locators a bit further to the left, just to have a clear indication of where the path is. Just a vague indication, okay? We don't really need something super precise at this stage. We just need to know more or less where things should be. And you will find out we will change this thing anyway. The other thing is that probably we don't want to have the pole visible on screen at the beginning, so I will just grab the camera and I will move the camera possibly a bit higher than it is now, so that the pole will come back, so that the pole will come in from the bottom right corner and a bit more to the left. That should give us enough indication. And now I can draw the line that the spaceships will follow. I will save my file before it's too late. And it's always a good idea, by the way, to set autosave on, so that as you work you don't lose your work. If Maya crashes, and Maya will crash on you, doesn't matter how simple the scene is, it will crash. So now let's draw this curve that the spaceships will be following. So we'll go Create, Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool. And I would like to draw the curve where I drew the locators, and that's fairly easy to make. First of all, one thing you want to know is that here at the top center section of the UI, there are these vertical lines. If you click on any of those containing a triangle in it, you will expand a sub-menu, and this menu here is the menu for snapping. See what happens if I hold down V on my keyboard, and you see that as I do it, the magnet with a little dot goes off and gets highlighted. If I hold down V, it means Maya will try to snap whatever I create to a vertex, and the locator is sort of acting like a vertex. So let's try if that's true. I hold down V, I left mouse click and drag around the locator, and you see that the CV snaps there. I do the same for every single locator I have on my screen, and at the end maybe I will jot down one more CV and I will press enter, and that gives me a curve that more or less goes through those locators. And now on screen you see I have the curve in there, and I can maybe edit it, so I can right click and hold control vertex, grab the control vertices there and move them up a little bit to where I think they should be. There you go. So that's going to be my curve in there. So now I will select my camera, and on frame 28 I will press S just to store this information. So if you see what the camera movement will be is this action. It will go from framing where the X-wings are coming from to frame where they zip by and end up on the pole and the flag. And you see it was much easier to prepare this scene if we knew where the camera was ending, which is the important bit of the animation really. Now we've got to tell the X-wings to follow this curve, and that should be easy enough. So I will go and grab any X-wing handle, press F on it, and we're back to the X-wings. I will then grab the locator at the beginning, at the center of them, the locator that moves both of them, and I will want the locator to travel along the path. That's fairly easy to make. I will probably name this locator X-wing locator. Now to connect it to the curve, you just select the locator first, and then you hold down Shift and you click on the curve. And I will go Modeling, Toolkit, go into Animation, and under that I will find Constraint and Motion Paths, and I will say Attach to Motion Path. And in here, if you think of it, the X-wings will fly down. There you go. The camera now is a bit too fast in moving out, and also the curve is a bit too low in here. And you see we have a couple of other problems. Well, one of them being the X-wings are not really flying the right way. If you think of it, they fly sideways, which is really not what we want. How come they fly sideways? Well, the problem here really is that Maya does not know which way is front for these guys. The easy way to find that out is to select the locator, hold down R on your keyboard and left mouse button hold, and make sure the axis is set to object. And now whatever axis is pointing forward, that's called your front axis, and this is the blue one, right? And blue is Z. You find that here. So if I know that, one thing I can do is I can go hit Control A like alpha on my keyboard and go Motion Path, and in Motion Path in the tab you will find there's something called front axis, which is set to X. You see X is pointing forward now, and that's reasonable for as far as Maya is concerned, but for us it's not what we want. So the front axis we set it to Z. You will find out that now the X-wings are flying the right direction. And that's one problem sorted. The other problem is that the locator doesn't seem to be on the curve, but that's a visual issue. If you select the curve and press 3 on your keyboard, the curve you see is moving and it will get smoother, and as it gets smoother the locator will be lining up perfectly, so don't worry about that. Now those two things are sorted. The other thing that wasn't sorted was that the curve is much lower, you see, than the two locators we set down for it. So we'll just grab the CVs of the curve and just make sure that more or less the curve will get flat as it flies through that point, and we also make sure that it flies more or less to where the locators were. And now if you check in here, there you go, our curve is working. I could even grab the whole curve. If you press F8, you leave component mode, you go back to be able to select objects, and I can just drag the curve a bit lower so that now the X-wings are flying by where they should be. There you go. Now I kind of don't like the shape of the curve in here, so one thing I can do is I can select the first CV, hold down B and drag with the middle mouse button. You see that other CVs are now being affected, and I can now move and rotate the first CV, and that will affect the rest of the curve, which is not bad for what we need to do. And then I will probably want to check what goes on with this CV in here. If you find out that you struggle to control a CV, you can even try and delete it and see what's the effect on the curve. I think here there might be a problem with camera lens. The problem is I will need the last X-wing to pass very close to the pole, which is down there near the camera. That's the pole, and these X-wings are already fairly close and they look very small on screen, so my suspicion is that this camera lens is not what we need, but we'll sort it out later. Now I will save, and I will need the third X-wing, so I will just go File, Create Reference, and again reference another X-wing into the scene. So I will go Rig, X-wing 001, and I should have a tiny X-wing down there. Let's zoom in and check. Press F on the selection. There you go, super small, smaller than the pole. But if I go into the channel box, the scale was set to 100, remember, so I will set it to 100 again, and now I should have a much bigger X-wing. And I can position it to, and I can accommodate its position so that it reflects the planning for panel 4. So that, there you go, I will move it closer to the flag, and I think that sort of works. I mean, I will maybe rotate it to see what the framing will look like. There you go. And this sort of works as far as framing is concerned. With an X-wing that close, I guess we can have some wind moving the flag, and it's gonna look alright, I guess. So it seems to me that the X-wing should fly over here, but you see I already have one curve in there, and I would need another one, and it really took a while to tweak that curve, if you think of it. So I think I will follow another approach for this X-wing, and you will see that will work for us. But let's save the scene, and let's make sure that the first camera motion works with the two X-wings, and then let's figure out the third one later.